on, and we're waiting, and we're waiting. What is it doing? Oh, hey! I don't know what that was.
Oh, it's
Oh,
transcribing.
it's transcript.
Click the X. We can
I don't. That's a. Oh, hi everybody! Welcome to yet another episode of Witches and Wine. This is the show where we talk about witchy stuff and we drink wine. Clink and drink. Clink and drink.
Clink and
Far
drink,
away,
sir.
clink and drink, and nearby, clink and drink. Yay! So, I'm your hostess with the mostest, Lolo Stardust. And before we start the show, I'd like to give the disclaimer that we give. It has been brought to our attention that some people don't enjoy watching witches drink wine and get a little tipsy. And even though wine is in the title of our show. So we like to let them know that there's this wonderful thing in the corner of your screen. It's an X. And you can click that X and not watch us.
Yep, it's amazing. You have power. You have control. You can make your own decisions.
And you can create magic. So on that note,
we disappear.
Yeah, you want to make us disappear? Click, we're gone. All right. So before we get to this awesome guest that I'm very, very excited to have, I'm going to turn it over to my high priest, my husband, my best friend, my ride or die, Silent as Stardust. Why don't you tell us about the wine we are drinking?
Why, thank you, honey. Ride or die. I appreciate.
Ride or die?
So,
let's look at the wine.
Today, I have chosen a Marani, and I have to look at the words. I can never pronounce it.
Okay.
A Mukuzani.
A Mukuzani.
And this is a Georgian wine. Georgian is in the country, not the state. So Eastern European. Very, very, very dry. Got spice notes, some dark fruit, and a little bit of tobacco spice box flavor.
Ooh, that's
the cigar box kind of flavor.
I like it.
Definitely not for a beginning wine drinker because of the dryness factor. Go really nice with a stew coming in the fall season.
Yeah.
Go nicely with a nice hearty meal. I'm going to run you about $15, so very affordable. And just a new region that we've never explored on Witches and Wine. Also, it can be made by families that end in Shadowsky's different.
What did you say?
Shadowsky, Minowskis, things of this nature. So I thought it'd be interesting for our guest tonight, which I will go ahead and let Lola introduce.
We do got to share the story.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you, honey. I love you.
I'm going to step out. We actually have our other normal...
normal? She's not normal.
I am abnormal.
Honey, why don't you go and I'll talk?
You do the words. I'm done.
Our co-host, she's here. I love her. My coven sister, Zeta Stardust. A lot of you know her as Madhouse or Danielle, whatever you want to call her. Just don't call her late to dinner. Mm-hmm. All right. Hi.
Hi.
She's petting my pussy. Oh, your mom might be watching. Sorry, mother-in-law. She doesn't like when I say pussy. But it's a pussy cat. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest. We love him. We know him. I first got to meet him. I got to train him for a position with the school. We got to know each other. We got along really well. And I've just always... Are you petting it?
No, remember you're the biggest thumb. Yeah.
Big thumb. I'm the big thumb to his little thumb. The wonderful Niko Shadowsky. Welcome to the show, Niko. Yay!
Thank you for
Why
having
don't you, oh, stop it. Our dogs are ridiculous.
Hello, dog.
Why don't you introduce yourself, and if you want to give all the titles and the high mucky mucks, that's awesome. So just introduce yourself.
I wear nowhere near as many hats as my teacher.
That's okay. It's all
I
right.
am Nicodemus Shadowsky. I am a first-degree priest with the Wise tradition and summoner and student to Daryl and Rebecca Delph, high priest and priestess of the Ever Green Hearth ATC.
Awesome. And do you do anything at the school anymore? Yeah, I know you're not calendar keeper anymore, right?
Presently, I don't. I will be returning to enrollment and everything as soon as my work schedule allows it. I got all the way through to sophomore, and it just get to the point where
Too much.
Well, it was like I could do it. I could get it done if I really, really wanted to, but I
Yeah.
retained absolutely nothing, and it wasn't worth doing the thing to not gain from it. So I'm letting it sit on the shelf until there's room on the board, as it were.
Well, and that is such a smart decision, because to me, that's more important than when you realize you're like, look, I can't gain what I know I need to gain from this until I've got the time and I've got the energy, and and a lot of people have to do that, and I always admire and respect them for that, because for me, when I was at the school, I did it the opposite way. For me, because I know if I took a break, I would never return. I have to go. I have to do, and I have to go, all right, I'm in it. And I wanted to finish something I started, because I'm good at that stuff. The school taught me that, and running a coven. Before that, I had a hard time finishing things I started. So to me, this was it. This is like, if I can do this, if I can start from year 1 and go all the way to year 4, then I know I can do anything. And that was a big deal for me.
Yeah.
So I'd like to tell a little story about Niko and how he influenced, without him even knowing it, our funny little name that we gave ourselves. So we were at a Spring Mysteries festival, and it was or was it Spring Mysteries?
It may have been a sickle.
It might have been a sickle. I don't know. But the students from the Wiccan Seminary decided we were going to get all together in person and meet each other. So it was like a little student meet and greet. Do you remember this?
I think that was a Mysteries.
I think it was a Mysteries, yeah.
I couldn't tell you when in the day or the week it was at Mysteries, but it was definitely a Mysteries.
It was a Mysteries. I don't know which one, but so we're sitting around this table and we're all introducing ourselves. And for the longest time, I thought Niko's name, Shadowsky, was pronounced Shadowsky. So he introduces himself and he's like, I'm Niko Shadowsky, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, holy crap, like this whole time I've been saying Shadowsky. And so I said that. I go, oh my God, I thought you were Shadowsky. And he's like, yeah, I get that a lot. So I was next to introduce myself. And instead of saying I'm Lola Stardust, I said I'm Lolo Starduste.
Starduste.
So now our coven, instead of the Stardusts, our other name is We Are the Stardustes. And that is in honor of Shadowsky. And we owe it to you without you even knowing that you influenced that.
I actually have a follow story to that.
Okay, yeah.
So Lady Phoenix Silverstar,
Yeah.
God bless her.
Yeah.
I was in one of her classes, and she was running through, and she did the exact same thing. She, Niko Shadowsky, and that's exactly how she thought it was, and I was like, it's Shadowsky, and she was just like, oh, and it's just one of those like, oh, everyone thinks I'm like Italian.
But it's so obvious when you say it.
That's the funniest part. I bring it to everyone's attention, and they're just like, "Oh my God!"
We overcomplicate it.
We overcomplicated your name, and it's like you're like Shadowsky, and I'm going, what? Oh, well, shit. Yeah, duh.
It's literally right there.
It's
the 2 words.
Shadow Sky, and we're all Shadowsky. So. We love it. It's every time we say Starduste, we think of you. So we think of you a lot, Niko. I want you to know, because we say it a lot. We're Starduste. So let's talk about Invocation. Let me tell you, this man here, I have seen him invoke everyone from Hermes to Ares to you were the first time I really saw you. I think you were Hephaestus.
That was my first role with
that was your first. That was, I think,
Our first festival.
I think that was our first Spring Mysteries, is when you were. I think it was.
Yeah, that was 33.
Yes.
Yes.
That was the one where Bella was Demeter.
Oh no.
No, that was our second one.
That was our second one.
It was my first though.
That was your first one.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I know you've invoked more.
In that regard, the only one you miss is Eumolpus, the year after that.
I saw that too. Yes, I saw that too. So I've seen all your invocations. We want to talk about invocation. Invocation is such a big part of what we do as witches. I know not a lot of witches or a lot of Wiccans I've met some that are like, oh, we don't really do a lot of invocation. I'm just finding out new things about different traditions, but the people we run in circles with, that's a big part of what we do. I want to talk to you about when you invoke. First of all, where did you know that you were going to be, when you first invoked, did you know that it was just going to be something that was going to keep going and going? Or were you nervous? What was it like when you were first invoking? I like when I get that reaction.
Story time. So, my second ritual ever. My first was a belting with the Ever Green Hearth. And then the next one was a Litha. And I was still very much new to everything. Like, I couldn't have told you a fraction of what I know now.
Yeah.
And I arrive, and I'm greeting people, and Daryl comes up, and he goes, "Hi, you're invoking the Holly King."
Oh, nice.
And I was like, "I'm Homest the West." And he, gives me a quick rundown. Quiet phone. He explains it to me. Like at this point, I am his student. Like I've asked him to be my teacher at this point. And he's like mentioned the subject maybe, but it was very much this is the boot camp version of invocation. Are you okay with that? And I was like, priesthood boot camp. Let's do this.
Yep.
And so he invokes me as the Holly King, finishing it with "Be nice, he's new." And then the next thing that I know, I'm standing over Daryl laying in the grass pretending to be the dead Oak King, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah. You're like,
because the moment Holly King struck down the Oak King for the ritual, he was just like, deuces.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a very interesting experience.
Yeah.
But I mean, when I first started doing it, it was just something that I did. Like, we held rituals at the hearth, or at the time I was doing Wolstenstein for that if it was needed. It was just kind of a thing that was available to do.
Yeah.
But now it's basically become my main focus as a priest when it comes to skills.
Yeah.
It became something that I did so often that, at least with like gods, I haven't had as much experience with invoking goddesses.
Yeah.
But with gods and energy forms, it's become something that it's just I do it rather easily. Every entity has its own process, but it's something that just comes very naturally to me, I guess.
Yeah. Well, when you say the boot camp, that's kind of what happened with me with invocation. Like
on the job training.
On the job training is what we call it.
Intense on the job training.
With intense. Sorry, it's okay. Anyway, so when I was in my, because the coven I run now is only the second coven I've been involved in. I was trained in a different coven and then hived off. And I remember when I was asked to invoke, I was like, and I would watch, my high priestess do it and other people do it, and I understood the idea of it. And to me, it was always known in the back of my head as drawing down the moon. Mm-hmm. So to me, invocation was kind of a new term, because to me, I just was like, well, yeah, I've been drawing down the moon for a while, but I've never done it in front of anybody. Like that, it's just always been this kind of private thing that I really didn't even know I was doing until after it became like technical and official. Like, oh yes, this is called, whatever. Yeah. And I remember my high priestess said, okay, you're gonna invoke, and my first person I invoked in a circle was Diana.
Okay.
And I just was like, okay, like, here we go. And it was very comfortable and just very natural to me. So I felt like, okay, I can do this, right?
See, that was the funny thing, because mine, solitary, So most books that I read and things that I came across were like, don't mess with invocation unless you had the proper training.
Yes.
It was very gatekeeping
Yeah.
thing for this.
Well,
like, unless
and that I think differs. That I've found at least it differs tradition to tradition.
yes.
I definitely don't think it's something you should do lightly.
Right.
And to an extent, I would agree with the statement that was in your book, where it was like, don't do it unless you've had the training. But there are different ways of gaining that training. Yeah, if you're a solitary, obviously you don't really have someone to train you.
Exactly.
But I guess, like Lola said, drawing down the moon and bringing the energy into you is kind of the baby steps that get you to invocation.
Yeah.
And that's what I found out for mine, was that once I got to where I was being trained properly, it was like, oh, this. Oh, okay, well, this I've done. Why was this such a thing that people were like, don't do it?
Yeah, but I think it depends on the person
The
too.
person?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
does. I definitely
deity.
Yeah.
right, and I would I would definitely say, even if you are a solitary, if it's something you're doing for the first time, especially, find another person that you are comfortable with who understands what you're doing as a spotter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, you need your spotter.
With some chocolate and some food for you at the end.
Yes.
And even like with festival, we have someone who basically holds the position of Gaia and makes sure, did you get your grounding food? Have you grounded out? Have you devoked? Yeah. What do you need? What's your care package?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's definitely something, if you're new to it, or if it's something that you're not sure of as a priest or priestess or priestess, that you have that spotter or that person to catch you, because it can be something that is very surprisingly shaking. Like even for me, the first time I invoked Charon, which I did for a Mabon at the Hearth, I didn't fully realize what I was invoking until I invoked him and then devoked him, because I devoked him and then I had the clear and conscious thought of, oh fuck, Charon's a Titan.
Yes.
So I came down and I was just like, oh, damn.
Right.
And again, I had someone to catch me, because it was something that typically, if it's someone I've not personally begun working for before the role, or have at least experienced, which I'll explain more when it comes to headspace. But if it's just like, for the only reason that I'm working with this energy is for this role, I've never worked with the energy before, I try to designate someone to catch me, to make sure that I've done all of my research.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I know for me, I drew down the moon very close to before I became even a dedicant in my old coven, and I was drawing down the moon, and I was heavily invoked, and I didn't understand how I was able to see something about someone. It was almost like, it was very close, now that I look back on it, to like oracle work.
Sure.
Delphi type of oracle stuff, because I was able to, there was someone there with me, it was me and my husband and another friend, and I had no idea what she was going through, and I called it. Like, the psychic part came out. It wasn't Lola. It was whatever, and I wasn't even, it wasn't like, I'm going to invoke so-and-so. It was just, I literally worked with, it was a full moon. I think it was even a super moon. It was, we were celebrating in my backyard, and I drew down the moon. I mean, like, and I didn't do it the way that you normally would. I was crawling on, it was almost Maynard oracle. Like, it was very like, and I just worshiped the moon. And next thing I know, I'm telling this person that you are loved, you need to be here on this planet, blah, 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 all this stuff. I found out the next day that this person had tried to slit their wrists and wanted to. I had no idea. This person covered up their, I didn't see scars or not. I didn't know any of this, and it scared the shit out of me. That I got that connected with whatever I drew in. And then that's when I was like, okay, I want training on this. I want to know exactly how to do this without freaking myself out. And because it was freaky, you know? So you're talking about headspace.
Yeah. So when I first started on my path, a lot of stuff was very hard for me to conceptualize. The two big ones were, how do you look at someone who is invoked and not see that person? Mm-hmm. And the other one, how do you know that the voice in your head isn't the voice in your head and not God or goddess or whatever?
Yes.
And the first one of those was solved at my very first festival, which actually happened to be a sickle. It was the Fortuna and the Tarot sickle, quite a few years back now. Yeah. And we were going along our path with the tarot, and we got to the hangman, and the hangman did their spiel, and that, you know, kind of resonated with me, but it wasn't the big one for me. And so I'm standing there listening to the hanged man finish, and I turn around, and Odin and Mikey, you know Mikey.
Yeah.
Mikey is invoked as Odin standing in the back corner, like in the shadows, and I turn around, see him, and go, oh, that's how.
Yes.
It wasn't Mikey.
Exactly.
Sure, yep. But the voice in my head thing took me a little longer to figure out, and it became a matter of personalizing it so that it worked for me, because it only needs to work for me in my case. And so
exactly, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. And since I'm very much a visual person, whether it's like when I was in math classes, anything that was written out for me or drawn out for me especially was, don't knock over the wine, was really easy for me to understand, as opposed to just reading and trying to like be told.
Yes.
So I needed to create a headspace for me to work in when I meditate, or just when I'm daydreaming or what have you. Uh-huh. And so I created this space that basically mimicked the theater that I had in high school, with some modifications. I'm a drama major.
There you go. I did some in middle school. I never did high school.
Theater background, big time. Yep.
Yeah. So the gods sit in the house, and I sit on stage. When I invoke, the deity in question comes up on stage. I step back out of the spotlight, and they stand in the spotlight.
That's awesome.
When it's more intense, the curtain will close, and I will be able to I'm still able to interact, but I step back another layer.
Like way out of the scene. Yeah.
Yes, the scene is going on. I can hear it. I can kind of see the light through the curtain, but I'm not as present, because usually that's what I do for festivals or things like that, where I don't need to be present for those things.
Yeah.
Those are usually the ones where I'll come back out and be like, I have no idea what I said.
Yeah. And I think, and I don't want to say this in a way that excludes anyone who doesn't have a theater background. For me personally, and what you said, it helps.
Yeah.
It does help.
Because you're already in tune with being able to channel the different things.
Yeah.
The different energies. Because when you're doing the theater background, you have to step aside and become the character.
That character, yeah.
It's different, but it still gives you an edge. It gives you an edge.
And the theater part of it, I use it far less than I thought I was going to when I realized what it was. It obviously helps when we're doing festivals, because it is a performance aspect. So my body naturally knows how to cheat out, how to project, that kind of thing.
Yep.
But when it comes to the headspace, the theater was where I felt the most comfortable. So it was the setting that I wanted for the most ease of access and the most ease of function, basically. I was very, very comfortable on a stage. And so putting myself on a stage made it easier to focus on the work and not the headspace.
Absolutely, yeah. I totally get that. And I like to hear that, because I always feel like, is it an advantage or is it a disadvantage? Because I know that sometimes, because for me, a lot of my beginning invocation, there was a part of it that was very much fake it till you make it kind of thing. Okay. And so I'm like, well, look, if I'm not fully invoked, I can use my theater persona and just keep doing it until it opens up, which worked for me. I'm not saying that's what, again, personal gnosis.
Well, and
but
that's the thing when it comes to Wicca in general, is there is no one way.
exactly. And for me, it was just like, okay, not feeling this invocation for whatever reason, but there's a performance, quote unquote, to be done.
Yeah.
So I will become that character. And usually what would happen is when I open myself up to just become that goddess or god, whatever, all of a sudden they would decide, well, shit, I'm coming in. Like it just did something. Yeah. Silenus wants to say something.
Well, and what's interesting is not...
Speak up more. Oh, we got the microphone.
What's interesting is not every invocation comes in strong.
Yeah.
Not every time you invoke does the energies, coincide with the host.
Yeah.
And there are things where it's an instantaneous bond, and you just know, okay, this is going to be easy.
Well, that's why the Charge of the Goddess was created as a placeholder for in case your invocation didn't come through. You could just go, okay, well, not, Hecate's not coming out this time, so let's read the Charge of the Goddess, or let's do the Charge of the Goddess. That was something that was taken into consideration, because sometimes those gods and goddesses are like, I'm busy doing other shit. Like,
also, it's sometimes just the priest or priestess and their headspace and where they are, they just can't get the connection. And it can be a deity that you've had a strong connection with in the past.
Yep.
And just for whatever reason that particular day, they're just like,
it's just not going to happen sometimes.
We're gonna
Or it
rest.
could just be where you are as a person. Like if you're not in a position or in a headspace where you can maintain an invocation and it be safe, then you turn to evocation and you make it work, especially if it's for somebody.
Yeah.
I had a particular event. I won't say which one for the sake of the individual. But there was a point where something was done where the being in question was less than pleased. And
yeah,
I don't know what they did per se. It was someone who shouldn't have said the thing they said in the way they said it, where they said it. It was a very, very poor choice, in my opinion. And I don't know how this particular individual handled it, but I used it as kind of a learning experience for myself, in that if that kind of thing happens, you kind of have to send that energy backwards and carry on what you're doing with a dialed down invocation or evocation, so that you're not putting yourself and those people at risk, because it's not your place to be a very angry god or goddess in front of a bunch of people.
You're absolutely right. And that's where the art of invocation becomes very fine-tuned, because there's more to invocation than just
priestess hat that you're putting on to be like,
wait a minute, maybe I shouldn't because shit, man, because Hecate wanted to say some things during Spring Mysteries when I was Hecate. She wanted to say things that were not part of the script, that were not part of what, and I'm like, Hecate, because think about what we were going through. We were quarantined. We were there was so much going on. And then for me personally, when I was Hecate, my dad was really sick, so there was this whole thing of death hanging over me, right? And anger. And so there were times when Hecate's like, I'm going to say yes! And I'd be like, no, you're not! Have you had that experience?
Probably a fair more times than I can recall. Having done the Sabbats for the Hearth, I can say it is 90%. It is 9 times out of 10 very, very, very difficult to script the gods. Usually, you can kind of figure out what they want to say or what should be said during whatever ritual, and you can get close. But whenever I've written a ritual and there have been gods or entities involved, it's usually this is what I'm hoping they'll say. But point across, we're Gucci.
I
they'll say what they want to say. They'll say what they need to say.
I learned that with Llamas because I've never been to an in-person Llamas monologue. So my only experience with Llamas is just the last 2 years. I did Lilith last year, and I did Balbo this year. And last year I wanted to be very professional because I'd never done it before, right? So I'm like, okay, so I took all these notes for Lilith. I took notes for Lilith. That's really funny.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
I know. I took notes. Right, like I'm gonna control what fucking Lilith wants to say. But I didn't know that because this is like, oh, this is my first time doing Invocation for the church and for Llamas. So I'm gonna write down all my notes and I'm gonna be all prepared. And I'm
A plus GPA 4.0 priestess.
Exactly. And everything that came out of Lilith's mouth, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, not even close to what I had noted. So this last time with Balbo, I had one note on my screen, and it said, "Let there be mirth and vaginas." That was it. That was it. And
that's pretty much what the monologue was about too.
Yeah. And that was it.
Then I have a question on the Invocation, because I know you and I have. Have you watched recordings back of when you've done an Invocation? And how do you feel with those?
It's weird.
That's where the drama thing kicks in. I hate watching myself perform.
Me too. As much as I love being like, hey, look at me. But then when I watch it back, I'm like, oh, God.
I've never done it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
Well, and so with monologues and with, in this case, the last couple festivals, because they've been online, it's a little bit 50-50 because it's not you. But at the same time, it's your face.
Yes.
Yes.
It's like, why the hell was I looking over there? Why did I say that way? Especially when I was Hermes, I was just mad at my camera because I looked like a goddamn Picasso the entire time. Because, like, now I have, if you look into this little corner, I use XSplit because my camera is a twerp. But that entire festival, my camera was doing this thing where it shifted all of the color down about half an inch. So like the color from my eyes was down here, so I looked like I had shadows. And like the blue and yellow that I had on as Hermes all shifted down, so it was like I was
melting.
I don't know. I looked like a Picasso.
You were melting.
I was, and I hated it. Thankfully I fixed that with Aries, but it was one of those things where I was just like, I hated watching it because I knew everyone saw it like that. It was just like, because I'm a perfectionist.
Me too. We're our biggest critics. The only time I watch Witches and Wine is when we do our premieres and I'm in the chat. But sometimes I'm not even in the chat and I can't watch it. I don't go back and watch. I've tried to watch some of our Witches and Wine and I'm going, oh my God. Like, and actually that makes it so much easier for me because I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to critique myself. I'm just going to say it and other people, they can see it and say what they want. Mm-hmm. But when I watched my Lilith, I was so incredibly uncomfortable. Because first of all, she kept doing this.
Yeah, she wants to just...
She wants to snake.
She was a snake. And she would go in and out. And that is so not me. I am not like, hey. I'm like, you know. So watching that, I was like, oh. And at the same time, I'm like, okay, it's like evil sexy. Like, I was like, Lilith is evil sexy. And I'm uncomfortable with that because I don't look at myself and go, damn, girl, you're sexy. I look at myself and go, damn, girl, you farted. No, just kidding. No. But anyway, no. So
it wasn't the evil part that was difficult for her.
It was the evil part was like, but it was that slithering. And when I watch it, and she's grabbing herself, and like, I'm going, first of all, I was heavily invoked because that was not me. And second of all, watching it, I watched it once when I showed my husband. That's it. I cannot watch it again. I tried, and I'm like, ugh. Balbo, I watched once. I watched for the first time a few days ago, and I cracked myself up.
So some are a little bit easier
Yes.
than others.
How about you? Is there ones that you watched and you're like going, have you? Well, I guess you can't because you've done most of yours live, right? Like in person.
Yeah, a lot of like they recorded some of the monologues because
Oh,
a lot
yes,
of
yeah.
even when they were in person, they started recording those and live streaming those on Facebook. But with festival, you don't do cameras, you don't do recording, you don't do any of that. So I haven't been able to see those. I've seen photos, which actually, as I'm talking, I'm
It's a
going
little bit of a
send this thing.
glimpse in a photo still, but it's
Right, it's a little bit.
Yeah.
But I guess in the same context, I don't watch myself after I've done a show because it's weird.
It is
Because I know the character and I know exactly what I went through in the behind the scenes and in the backstage part of it. And like I'll watch a show once typically, unless I'm just really mad at myself for something. Like there was a show where I completely flummoxed my lines and there was like 5 solid minutes of silence, which it was a Chekhovian play, so it worked, but I know I messed up and it pisses me off. So I won't watch that. I watched up till that point and kind of critiqued myself and learned from it. But I won't watch up right before to that point because I am so mad at myself.
Yeah.
But
I'm the same way, Nico. I'm the same way. I think it's our theater background. It makes us go, I could have acted better, whatever.
well, it's a matter of like it was something that I think could have been avoided if I had done this or done that, etc.
Yes.
And I mean, like you said before, we're our own worst critics.
Yeah.
However, what I try to watch through any performance I've done that's recorded at least once, because that is how you learn. You watch yourself, you kind of see, oh, I wasn't cheating out as much, I should work on that, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to multitask and do is I am trying to, because we weren't live, they couldn't take pictures of us while they did the monologues. And so I'm sending you the stills for Balbo. So you'll get those later.
I will, thank you.
And it's been fun. But I like for example, I had to watch the Trant one, and there are things that I wonder how they're coming across when I'm doing it. For this one, the 2 things I was most concerned about was my voice, because I was heavily changing my voice for it.
It wasn't even your voice. That's what was insane.
Well, right. And that's the thing is I try to utilize the performance aspects that I have under my tool belt for the things I can whilst invoking or doing work like that. And so with Trant, I am a wannabe voice actor, so I do all manner of voices. So, when I want to do a voice, I can do a voice.
Yeah.
So I was very concerned about how it was being picked up by the mic, and then the goal physically was to convey as much of the emotion of what I was saying as I could without a whole lot of movement, because the thing with the Trant was it's the quality and not the quantity of what you're doing.
Yes.
And for me, I was at least pleased with myself in the fact that my eyes were speaking what my words weren't, and so with that one, I was very happy with. So it's case by case, I suppose.
So for those who are watching, and just in case, a treant, he was basically a tree.
If you've seen Lord of the Rings, I was Treebeard, like his second.
Okay, there you go. Thank you for the reference, because so it was funny because he was right before Balbo, right?
Oh.
So me and Nico were talking, and I said because I was already invoked as Balbo. Now, here's the thing. Balbo, and I remember this. I don't remember what you said. I had to watch you back and go, but I loved it because it was pay attention to your words. It was about what the words, and I love that because that is a huge lesson for us so badly right now. What we say, right? Choose your words wisely. I didn't even know that because I was invoked as Balbo, but I remember Balbo watching you because you were right before me. And Balbo was in such a jolly fucking mood, right? Like, she was like, I remember her holding her smile back because I didn't want anyone to, like, and I know no one could see me, but I didn't want to be disrespectful to the tree because the tree demanded so much, like, listen to what I'm saying. So she was very much into it, but she wanted to laugh because that's what she was. I was just like, like, everything was funny and amazing. And I wanted to honor that so badly. So it was really hard to listen to the message because I was focusing on making sure she was respectful of all the other deities that were around, even in our internet space or our online space. We still feel each other's energy, and I wanted to give that respect to you. But I want to let you know now, because I got some wine in me, it was very difficult because Balbo wanted to just be like, but the treant was so serious. So it was like, and she understands, oh, okay, serious time, but I want to laugh. I want to go, you know.
It was really funny because right before we began that block, who was it? It was Athena and Odin, who were two other monologues in the block. They were having kind of a playful spat with each other on things. Mm-hmm. And the trained is just sitting there very stone-faced like, I hope they watch my monologue. Because they were just playing with words and like repeating what the other says and making it funnier and things like that. And that just amused him to no end.
Well, it's like when we did Spring Mysteries and all that energy of the, you know, because even online, you know, we're on camera in the rehearsals and we're talking to each other and we're getting ready. And I remember once I invoked Hecate, she was so serious. And, you know, I like to have fun and I like to make jokes.
What?
I know, weird. I know, you don't know this about me.
Are you sure?
If you don't know this about me, I have a very strange sense of humor. But, so she was irritated. And I can say this because you'll get it, because you've been doing this longer than I have with the Spring Mysteries and the festivals. She was irritated with well, maybe not Aries, but she was irritated with pretty much everybody. Like, and I had to, like, she just wanted to tell Aphrodite to shut up. No offense to Skyfae, you were amazing, Aphrodite. She wanted to tell Demeter to fucking just pull up your big girl panties and fucking get to work. She wanted to tell the Corate you're being a fucking brat. Like, no, like, seriously, like, it was so hard for me because I love all you guys. But Hecate was like,
well, and that's very much Hecate. She's like the mother, the aunt, the grandmother that loves you very much, but
she wants to take the fan and bop you on the head with it.
Like,
right. Well, and with festival, it's a very interesting thing because it is a process that they all go through, which I got to remember what I can and can't say. It's just they well, and rehearsals are something different as well. Like the first time I was on cast and I was Hephaestus, me and Hera had we had a particular way of loving each other. Like Liz, who was Hera that year, Liz and I would just heckle each other to death.
Yeah.
Like, you know, oh, hey, son, how'd you land? Oh, not bad, Mom. You got any new chairs lately? You know, it was very salty.
Yeah.
But we were doing it for fun. Like, we were over it, and we were having fun with it. And the priestess who was Hecate that year, who was also very, very close with Hera, got very kind of angry with us about it. It was just like, or with me about it. It was just like, she's the queen of the gods. You need to show her respect. And
Yeah.
they both kind of looked at each other like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I'm just giving Mom a hard time.
Yeah.
Because
Who was
that's,
that?
I mean, they interact with each other how they're going to interact with each other.
Was that Talia? That was Hecate?
No. No, that was Joy.
Oh, yes, that was the first one. The second one we saw. Did you see Talia?
No.
So you saw the second one, which was, yeah, Talia, I think, was our first one.
Talia was my first.
Yeah, with the snake. Was amazing. But that's the thing, though. So this was all new to me, and even though I've been doing this for a while, and it was a new experience. And not only that, it was online.
Yeah.
And you add the fact that Hecate likes to be in her cave and be removed from everyone, and she comes out when she needs to, like, I have something to tell you. Goodbye, I'm going now. And she goes back in her cave. So that was the biggest lesson for me, was I felt very, and it didn't help we were going through a pandemic, but I felt very disconnected from everybody. Yeah. And I had to talk to the previous Hecates and say, is that even normal in person? And they're like, yes, there is a disconnect, because she is like, she's watching it all, and she's like, and she'll pop in when needed, and then she immediately, like, retreats.
Yeah, and even in, like, I kind of explained in my headspace how the gods all hang out in the house. Of those gods, there are 3 that never stick around permanently, and that's Horus, Hecate, and Fortuna.
Okay.
Which are 3 of my 4 patrons, actually.
Okay, cool.
The other one's Anubis, and he just hangs out to heckle set.
Yeah, right.
Really. But Horus just likes to fly, but Hecate and Fortuna, it's kind of like you were saying, they're there where they need to be, and then they do their thing, and then they show up, and then they go do their thing.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, it's, I mean, even thinking back on the experiences I've had with the festivals, it's like, I know that even for shrine times, the fact that we're kind of segmented off is, I think, good for every one of the gods, because they need that space with their shrine. But I remember that year, actually, when Talia was Hecate, there was a point where all of the gods were moving from, I think, a rehearsal spot back to the cast cabin, and I had actually stopped Hecate and asked her to bless a ring that I had gotten while at the festival after shrine time. And at first, she kind of seemed bemused that I would stop her, before realizing kind of what was going on, and was just like, yeah, it's totally fine. But I can kind of see where that's coming from too, where it's just like she has her own veil that she kind of stays behind, because she doesn't need to interact. She's just making sure the flow is correct.
And that was difficult, because it was my first time, and it was my first time rehearsing with you guys, and you all had a what do you call it? A rhythm that you were in, because you're used to working with each other. And I felt like, here comes the new girl. And then I was like, oh, I'm Hecate. I don't want to be around you. It was so hard. It was hard. That's what she said. It was really, really hard that's what she said again, to come to terms with, this is the gods. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm okay. These people don't hate me. I love these people. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. That was my biggest lesson. That was my biggest lesson I've had in a long time, and I'm so thankful for it.
I went through something similar when I was Saturn. I did Saturn for the Roman sickle.
Yeah.
And he and I had 2 major headbutting things. One was anti-socialism, because he doesn't want to deal with anybody.
And he's slow moving, and he's like,
well, he's not. That's the thing, is I can't really explain Saturn very well, because time means nothing.
Well,
he doesn't move slow because he's on time.
It's kind of like, did you watch Loki?
Not yet.
It's like the timekeeper guy. Like, time is actually, there is no time, so there's really no way to measure it. I could see that being Saturn.
Yeah. The other thing that we tussled with was, so when I have a major role, or when I deal with a god form for a major role, and I deal a lot with their energy, the way that I've kind of set it up in an agreement, I suppose, with the god form in question, is they leave behind a perk, or something that I utilize in my everyday that comes from the work I did for them. With Hephaestus, I called it his gloves. And basically, when I'm working with something, especially if it's something of another god's, like from their god box, I focus energy around my hands, and I don't give energy to the thing. It doesn't give me energy. There's a complete wall.
Okay.
And it's because I've witnessed someone who's basically an energy sponge, basically deal with way too many god forms at once who are at conflict with each other in their own headspace, and it had an effect on them, and I don't want to do that.
That makes sense.
But it's also because there are things that there are certain relics, if I'm working with them, where I don't need to put my energy in it because it's not mine, it's theirs.
Yeah.
And so that was that kind of perk with I always want to say Kronos because he showed up too. With Saturn, it was kind of a web weaver effect where if I focused on somebody, I could see blips on their timeline on either side, and I hate that.
Really?
I love reading tarot. It's something that I enjoy very much. I hate visions. I hate future visions. I don't mind past visions because I've done past life regressions and I know it can help you a lot. I hate seeing the future. I don't want that kind of responsibility. I don't want to know.
Do you know you're seeing the future? Because for me, I'll have, and I'm not someone that sees a lot of the future, but when I do, I reflect back on a vision that I had. I don't know I'm seeing the future. I just think I'm having one of my, to be honest, let me tell you, I think I'm having a flashback to all the acid I did in the 90s. So I'll be like, I'll have something that goes, oh, wow, that was intense. And then I'm like, okay, whatever. And then it happens. And then I go, oh, shit.
Oh, that was,
So, do you know you're seeing the future?
in this particular instance, yes. It was, if you've ever seen the anime called Death Note.
I've not, my children probably have, yes.
Madhouse, you said you have?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, in the way that certain characters could see the countdown of someone's life over their head, it was a red line that I could see over their head.
Oh, wow.
And then, like, either a snippet or like a scene or an image. It was vastly varied person to person, case to case, but it was a thing that he wanted me to have, and I was just like, I understand that, I respect it. No. So basically, the consensus that we came to was I'm allowed. He gives me the ability. I just won't touch it with a 20-foot pole, because unless there is a very specific reason that I need to do so for somebody as a priest of Saturn or Kronos or whatever time god, no thanks. It's just one of those things I don't enjoy having that knowledge because it is partially a personal thing. I have certain anxieties about the future. I'm one of those weird anxiety people where death doesn't necessarily frighten me, mainly because of the work I've done spiritually, where it's just like I believe that, when I pass away, I will go to the goddess. I will spend the time I need to with the goddess, and then I will come back as soon the hell ever.
Yep.
My brain pushes past all that to what happens when the red hot death of the planet happens.
Oh, yes.
And I'm just like, why? Why do we need to know? Why do we need to care?
You go down that rabbit hole.
Exactly, and I'm just like, fill the hole. Oh, there's another one. Fill the hole.
Can I ask you, because I know for each one there's different preparation for invocation. So I've talked to some people who are like, okay, when I know I'm going to invoke someone, I really prepare. I need to be prepared. I need to know all their stories. I need to have an agreement with them. I need, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. For me, what my preparation is what we call soft invocation. So I do, and for anyone who's watching who may not go, what's the difference between soft invocation and like full on? From what my personal experience, and I want to ask you as well, soft invocation. So like for an example, it's kind of what I did with Lilith beforehand, except I did take all the notes, and I really did it with Balbo because there's not a lot about Balbo except in the myth, the cult of Demeter, that
Right.
story, right? There's really not anything else about her except vagina, vagina, vagina. She loves to laugh. She's a bigger, older woman, and she made Demeter laugh, and
brought her out of her depression.
And brought her out of her depression. And even though it was a small role, it was a huge role in the grand scheme of things. But
Right.
as far as stories and like, there wasn't a lot about her. So I'm like, okay, I get the story.
Yeah, you can't go and look at the stories as your basis, so you have to.
I have to do these soft invocations of her, which to me was, well, I'm not going to do a full invocation of her every day because I have shit I got to do, right? But I would have that quiet time where I would just connect with her. And I would speak in her voice. You know what I mean? I would just be like, and it would just be snippets of things. Like I would ha ha, spread my legs open, and then I just kind of giggle, or laughing from my belly, and I would just do these things like ha 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 ha, and grab my belly, and then I'd be done. Like so. Do you find sometimes, have you over prepared, under prepared? Like what do you do, and what are you comfortable with?
Every god form that I've ever done, especially when it's a preparation type of thing, like for a festival or for a ritual or what have you, it is very much case by case. For example, when I was Ares, he basically just, like, I wouldn't even invoke him much. I listened to a metric ton of Sabaton, and played violent video games. Straight up, like I played League of Legends or Heroes of the Storm, where I was just attacking other, my enemy players, and I just kind of let his energy float in the space that is me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And there were some things that we did talk about, like certain things that he wanted to do or say in shrine scenes, or certain ways that certain parts needed to be said, like when it comes to festival, that kind of thing. When it's so, for example, Demeter randomly showed up in my headspace. She was the first goddess besides one of the two matrons that I have that just showed up. And so for her, when I'm working with her, I kind of worked through Yamulpus with her at first.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
Especially when I was holding Yamulpus.
Yeah.
On her, when I'm just working with her, because I don't have the space where I live to have a garden, I just play nature music, like relaxing, go to sleep nature music, and I'll meditate.
Okay.
And I'll hop into the headspace and we'll have a conversation. But like on the other side of that spectrum, there's a video game called Smite, which is very much like your typical MMORPG, for my gamers out there. Except it's different gods from different pantheons that you play as and fight against, and
that's cool.
It's very fun. It's not one that I play a whole lot anymore, mostly because of time, and I don't have people who play it anymore.
Yeah.
But anyway, there was a point where they introduced 3 new pantheons to their game by introducing one god from each of those pantheons. And when they introduced the Voodooan pantheon, they introduced it with Baron Samedi.
Okay.
And so when he came out, I watched his character introduction, where they introduced the bit of lore that they include, his move set, his combat style and combos and things, and just kind of blurbs about him. And when that finished, the video was done. I kind of sat back, and then I got pulled into my headspace where he kicked open the door, walked in, and was like, "I'm pretty cool, ain't I?" And that's how he showed up. And so when I would play the game, I would simultaneously be listening to him talk, regardless of who I was playing. But then after I played the game, he just kind of says a blurb here and there every now and then. And if I have a question for him, he isn't usually around. He's around. He just won't show me where he is in the headspace.
Yeah.
And so in the headspace, I'll write the question down, fold it up, and burn it with a cigar.
Oh.
And then he'll answer it one of the next times he comes in with a blurb.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another one, Kepri, who is also one of those who's always there but never really visible.
Yeah.
He was one of the first gods to show up, and it was way back when I was still a baby pagan, and I was putting things together for an altar for myself. I'm primarily Egyptian and Greek, so a lot of my stuff's Egyptian. And there was this store that is unfortunately no longer up in Olympia called the Druid's Nook, where I found these little scarabs in varying colors, and Kepri being the big scarab beetle who moves the sun, showed up in my headspace, and he was just like, "Hey, buy all those." And I was just like, "What? Buy all those scarabs? Why?" "'Cause
Yeah.
I'll take a second." So I buy all the scarabs, and then he's like, "Buy the big one too," because there was this container that you could put them, not them specifically, but it was a big scarab that was similar but multicolored that they would all fit in. He's like, "Buy that too." And I was like, "Okay." So I bought it and I put them in there. And he's like, "Okay." In that shop, there is a set of runes that are Egyptian. They use hieroglyphs instead of the Futhar.
Have you seen those?
When you have given out all of the scarabs, you buy those runes and we'll work with them.
Oh, wow.
And so whenever I use those runes, he kind of shows up and helps me read them, because not a whole lot of people have them. And then like every now and then I'll be dealing with something and he'll just kind of pop his beetle head around the corner and be like, "Hey, do this."
Yeah.
He disappears.
He's like this.
Antisocial. Yeah. No, really, it's just.
Yeah.
This thing.
I love your fan. Let's show our fan. Ready? There we go.
All
right. Well,
but yeah, so all of them are different. I guess the most consistent way that I communicate with them is I hop into the house, which is usually just me finding quiet space, whether I'm at the computer doing something, brain numbing, or dedicatedly meditating or whatever I do to kind of disassociate. I'll appear on the stage, and whoever, because I've done construction on the headspace a little bit. The stage is still there, but everyone has their own building that they can go into, which is very much like a TARDIS, where it's bigger on the inside than it's on the outside. But each one is themed to fit that pantheon. So like the Egyptians are in a very much pyramid temple that expands to their own rooms. The Arthurians are in a castle. The Greeks are in a temple. Excuse me. And so whoever isn't in there will be at the house. And depending on what I'm dealing with at the time, or if there's nothing specific, depending on who wants to talk, we just kind of have a kind of half conversation, half council meeting, because someone will inevitably chime in.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, it's interesting to hear every person's way that they communicate, because for me it's I have my inner dialogue, but I can't explain to you when I know it's not Lola's inner dialogue. It's deity's inner dialogue. I can't put it into words because it's in here. It's in here. So to try to explain that is almost impossible. The only way I could describe it
It's an experiential thing.
It's an experiential thing, but the only way to try to put it in layman's terms is when it's my inner dialogue, it's usually telling me things that I know I want to hear. When it's deity talking to me, they're telling me those things that, no, I don't want to hear that. I'm not ready for that. And that's when I pay attention.
Gotcha. Yeah, for me, that one took a minute. That was where the visualization came in, because when I have the space visualized, the deity will come through in a way that I will recognize them. For example, when Demeter showed up, I don't know if you guys have seen the animated Anastasia.
Yes.
So when Demeter showed up, she showed up as Angela Lansbury's the Dowager Empress, but in like gold and exactly like her, but in golds and browns and greens.
Yes.
And so that's the face I've given her. That's the voice I've given her. So now that's the voice I hear. When I have a picture, especially because I do D&D, when I can see a character, I can give them a voice, and when I can give them a voice, I can hear that voice when it's that energy.
When Hecate shows up for me for the past almost decade, she's not even a clear image. She's like a
shadow.
It's a shadow. It's a wispy shadow with no face, but there's a face. It's so hard, and that's when I know it's her. It's it's like a ghost. It's like a ghost that just kind of goes, and I see her, and it's like, and I'm like, yep, there's that faceless face. Like,
no, I get it. When I first started working with Hecate, it was what I envisioned a Vila to look like from the Harry Potter books when I first read the books, but in full, like, almost gothic Lolita gown and veil, like a kind of Lolita meets a wedding dress, but in all black and silver.
Yeah.
And she's kind of got this. Her face is never the same, but it is kind of thing. Her eyes are always glowing. There's no pupil. And then you can't really see every part of it because of her veil, so I get pieces of it that I can kind of picture together for an image, but it's not always the same. It's fluctuative. But no, I totally get the whole. She's got a face, but it's not a face. It's just a face.
It's a face, but not a face. Liz Ivik, the artist who does all, so she did it, and I've got her stuff here of her Hecate. Yep. Look, husbands are asleep.
The Green Man Dionysus that you have behind you, the Prince. Yeah. I have that original.
Oh, awesome! Yeah. Well, the Hecate that I'll just grab the picture. Hold on, because when I saw this picture, I went, "Oh my God, that's the Hecate that I've been envisioning for a long time before," and it's kind of this.
Oh yeah. I had a camera of that for a long time.
Yeah, and there's just but it's even more. It's even less defined in my vision. It's like a wisp of a face. You know what I mean?
It has the characteristics that you recognize that would qualify for a face, but there's no detail.
How about you? How about you with a certain deity? Is there one that comes in a way that you're like, yep, that's her? Because I know you work with several.
Yeah, there's a couple.
Yeah.
Hecate is very similar, where it's the wispy face.
Wispy face, yeah, the wispy face.
Hestia is interesting because she's very clear.
Yeah.
But she does a whole bunch of stuff that, like, I don't necessarily want to do. Like, when I invoked her, she was all about, like, and we cover our head. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
And we cover our head. But fine.
Yeah.
Makeup. She's like,
what?
Flour? Sprinkle a little water?
Yeah.
What makeup?
Exactly.
Yeah. No, the The gods are pretty much the only reason I still have this.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. It's so long. That's what she said. All right. So on that note, we are coming up to where we're past our hour. We try to keep it around an hour because people have ADD and they just like. But thank you.
And some people fall asleep.
And some people fall asleep on us. Our husbands are over here in the corner falling asleep. It's kind of cute. They're napping.
Take a picture.
So cute. Anyway. Thank you so much, Niko. I love. Is there anything you want to say? Is there anything you want to say that you're gonna be clan clergy, right? In Sickle.
Yeah. So for Sickle this year, it's we're going to Avalon.
Yeah.
You can find more details than I can remember at sickle.me.
Yeah.
But I am clan clergy for Northumbria, which is the clan of Air.
Yeah.
So our symbol is Excalibur. And I'm
awesome.
clergy alongside Skeeter Wellhouse.
Yeah. That's awesome. Awesome. We're all excited, and oh my gosh, Niko, you're awesome. I love you, Niko Shadowsky, from a Starduce to a Shadowsky. I love you. I think you're just have the sweetest, most amazing heart, and thank you for being on our show. And before we go, I want to let anyone know out there that's watching, if you're interested in what Children of the Crossroads does, you want to be a guest on the show, you have suggestions for topics, or you just want to say, why do you do what you do?
Or suggestions for wine.
Then you can email us at
crossroadscoven@gmail.com.
I'm sorry, what was that?
crossroadscoven@gmail.com.
So thank you, everybody. Remember, always walk with the goddess and be very kind to one another. And until next time, blessed be. Have a wonderful night, and we love you all. Thank you, Niko. And we'll see you next time. Bye. Where do I do this?
The red button.